I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. A great first line can make all the difference when you're starting a book. Today, I am going to go through my April pile of possibilities and figure out which first lines are intriguing me to want to read more. Hello, book friends. It's Jen, and welcome to my reading life. Today, I am back with a kind of TBR for April and more of a pile of possibilities. I have pulled a huge number of books off of my shelves that I am potentially interested in reading in April, and I thought I would do something a little different this month. Let me take a quick sip of tea and then I will let you know what we're going to do. I was watching Louise over at Louise Savage Muses, and she did a fun video where she read the first lines out of some books. I believe it was from the Women's Prize for Fiction, the long list. And she read the first lines and then she used that as her criteria for whether or not she was going to prioritize reading that particular book. And I thought that would be a really fun way to do my April TBR this month. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to show you the book. I'm just going to give you the title and the author, and then I'm going to read the first line of the book. And then I'm going to decide whether it's going to be a high, medium, or low priority for the month. And I will stack those up and we'll see where we end up. I have a few different stacks of books here. One is just a random large stack of books that I am potentially interested in reading. And another fairly small stack are rereads. Then I have another stack that is from my TBR 24 and 24, and I've already made a decision about those books, so I will talk about that when I get to them. And then my last pile are books that I am reading either for my book club or for other projects that I'm working on, or other group reads for the month. So those are for sure reads, but we will still go through their first lines and see how intriguing we find them. Well, I have a lot to get through. I'm just gonna dive right in. The first book on the top of the stack is Rosman Pilcher's Snow in April. I mean, it has April in the title. Sounds like it might be a good book for this month. Let's see what the first line is. The first line is, banked in scented steam, with her hair wound up in a bath cap, Carolyn Clyburn lay supine in the bath and listened to the radio. Well, I already want to learn more about this. I love Rosman Pilcher. I think any first line of hers is probably going to draw me in. This one is going to definitely go in the high priority pile. Next, I have a couple of books that I moved over from my March TBR that I did not get to in March. And the first one is a book that I mentioned has been sitting on my TBR for so long. And that is A Girl's Guide to Kissing Frogs by Victoria Clayton. Let's dive into the first line. First off, it's dedicated to Zachary. That's my son's name. Okay, I'm actually going to read the first two lines because the first line is only 4 words. How did it happen? After my accident, Alex told everyone that it was entirely his fault. I had broken several bones in my foot, but then, like all dancers, Alex craved attention. I'm always up for a dance story. I'm going to give this a high priority because I really do want to read this and get it off my TBR shelf. It's been on there so long. High priority pile for this one. Next is another book off of my March TBR, and that is The Orchid House by Lucinda Riley. And this has also been on my shelf for a while, a few years. Let's see. Again, I'm going to read the first 2 lines. This is set in Norfolk, England. I have the same dream every night. It's as if my life is thrown up into the air and all the pieces are sent down, back to front and inside out. Well, I'm intrigued. Okay, I definitely, again, high priority for this one. The high priority pile is already piling up. All right, my next book is another one that has been sitting on my shelf for a very, very long time. I've pulled it off for multiple TBRs in multiple months over the past few years, and I would love to get to it, and that is Death in the Garden by Elizabeth Ironside. Let's read the first line. Today at 2:30 in the afternoon, I was acquitted of the murder of my husband. Well, I definitely want to know more about that. I think this sounds like a bit of a mystery, and I do love to have a few mysteries in my TBR. So again, high priority pile for this one. Not making very good progress here in terms of like weeding out maybe some books I don't want to read. Okay, my next possible selection is Village School by Miss Read. I have a number of Miss Read books on my shelf, both in the Fairacre and the Thrush Green series, and I really want to get started on them. Finally, I pulled this one off for this month. Let's read the first line of Village School. The first day of term has a flavor that is all its own, a whiff of lazy days behind, and a foretaste of the busy future. Well, I like that first line. This does start at the beginning of a school year, and I'm wondering if maybe this would be a good pick to read in September. I'm going to put this in the medium priority pile because I think I do love to read seasonally, and I love to read books set in schools and about teachers and things like that in the fall often. I think I'm going to do that. Medium priority for Miss Read. Next, I have Home by Marilynne Robinson. I read Gilead in January, and I want to keep on going with the Gilead series of books. Let's read the first line. Home to stay, glory. Yes, her father said, and her heart sank. It's not drawing me in quite as much as the first few books that I pulled out, so I'm going to also put this one in the medium priority pile. I definitely still want to read it. I just don't know if it's drawing me in for this month per se. My next potential read is the next volume, which is volume 4 in the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. I adore this series. Let's see what the first line in this volume is. Dr. Fairchild has just left. Well, not a super intriguing first line, but I just love Emma and I know I want to read this. So this is going on the high priority pile. Next is another book I've been wanting to read for quite a while now, and that is Darling by India Knight. And this is a retelling of The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford. And I think springtime is a great time for this and for The Pursuit of Love. Miranda Mills, she just talked about this book in her like spring recommendations. So that definitely prompted me to pull this one off my shelf. Let's read the first line. I found an old photograph of all of us at Alconley, a 6x4 print, tattered with age, but as vivid to me as flashing neon. Yes, I want to read this very much. Next, and I think this is another one that both Miranda and also Simon and Rachel at the podcast Tea or Books have mentioned this book as a good spring read, and that is Ayan Spring by Anne Bridge. And let's read the first line. Lady Kilmichael took her seat in the boat train at Victoria hurriedly, opened the Times, and hid behind it. Yes. Why is she hiding? I want to find out. They're all going in the high priority pile. This is terrible. I mean, not terrible. It's good to have lots of choices. I want to read them all. And I want to read them all now, apparently. Okay, my next potential read is Clooney Brown by Marjorie Sharp. I read my first Marjorie Sharp last year, which was Four Gardens, and really loved it. And I have a few more of her books on my shelf that I really want to get to. And I pulled Clooney Brown off for this month. Let's see what the first line is. Thinking of Clooney Brown, Mr. Porritt, a successful plumber, allowed himself to be carried past his bus stop and in consequence missed the Sunday dinner awaiting him at his sister's. I like that. I don't know if I like it as much as some of the other ones. It's still good though. Ooh, that is kind of a good first line. I do think I'm going to put this on the medium priority though. Medium priority pile. Just because I feel like some of the others have drawn me in just slightly more. Next up is possibly the only middle grade book I have in this pile this month, and that is Cartwheeling in Thunderstorms by Katherine Rundell. I've been wanting to read Katherine Rundell for a while, and I've had this book on my shelf for, again, a few years. And let's see what the first line is. Wilhelmina knew that there were some houses that had glass in every window and locks on the doors. Makes me think maybe Wilhelmina lives in a house that doesn't have those things. Okay, I only have this middle grade on my pile, so I'm going to put this in the high priority because I do like it when I have at least one middle grade every month. Next is one of my very favorite authors, and that is D.E. Stevenson. This is The Four Graces. Let's read that first line. Matilda Grace was humming the words to herself as she played it on the organ. Played what on the organ? I guess I'll have to read and find out. Well, I love D.E. Stevenson, and I haven't read a book by her in a couple of months, so I think this is going in the high priority pile, which is still very large. I'm not doing very well today, am I? In terms of, weeding out. I think I did a pretty good job of pulling books off my shelves this month that I am really interested in reading, which is good on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's leaving me with a very large pile of books that I really want to read and probably not as much time as I would like to read them all. And the next potential read is The Half-Crown House by Helen Ashton. And let's find out the first line from this. It was the 30th day of October, 1954, a Saturday, and the last afternoon in that year on which Fountain Court was open to the public. Well, it's set in October, or possibly heading into November. And again, I love to read seasonally. I think I'm going to put this in the medium priority pile because I may have to put this in my October TBR. We're almost to the bottom of this first pile. The next book is Their Spoons Came from Woolworth by Barbara Commons. I've been wanting to read Barbara Commons. I haven't read anything by her as of yet. And so I pulled this one off my shelf. One, because I received an advance copy of this biography of Barbara Commons, A Savage Innocent by Avril Horner, which just came out on March 19th. And I was thinking I could read this one and then dive into her biography. I really kind of want to have read at least one book before I start that. First line. I told Helen my story and she went home and cried. Well, I like that. I like that a lot. I find that very intriguing, and that draws me right in. So, high priority pile for this. Yikes. Next, let's go into my potential rereads for the month. My first potential reread is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. I read you the first line out of this novel at the beginning of this video, which is I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. What a fantastic first line to a wonderful, wonderful book. And I would love to reread this. I think it's a great reread in the springtime, a fun coming of age story. So definitely on the, I think all of the rereads will probably go on my medium priority pile just because I've already read them. Even though I do try to make it a goal to reread at least one book every month, I'm sure I'll get to at least one of these. The next one I pulled off my shelf is Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster. I love this little epistolary novel. Let's read the first line. The first blue Wednesday in every month was a perfectly awful day, a day to be awaited with dread, endured with courage, and forgotten with haste. I mean, come on. What makes you not want to dive right into that? I think this one's going to have to go on the high priority because I really want to read this. And it's so slim. It's such a slim little book, and I think I can read this really quickly. Okay, high priority for that. Next is At Home in Mitford by Jan Karen. I read this so many years ago and I actually don't really remember it that well. And I really want to reread it and then continue on in the series because I just never did for some reason. Let's read the first line. He left the coffee-scented warmth of the Main Street grill and stood for a moment under the green awning. Yeah, I mean, sounds like a lovely, quiet start to what I know is a lovely, quiet series. Since this is a reread, I'm going to put it on the medium priority pile. And then my last potential reread for this month is Shine On, Bright and Dangerous Object by Laurie Colwin. I have not read this in probably 20 or 30 years, and I don't really remember anything about it. And I did a buddy read of another Laurie Colwin in March, and it got me looking through my pile of her books that I own. And when I was reading the synopsis of this, I realized I don't remember anything about this, and I kind of want to refresh my memory. Here is the first line. My husband died sailing off the coast of Maine, leaving me a widow at the age of 27. Yes, so we're going to follow a widow in this one, and I really, really want to read this month. This is going to have to go on the high priority pile. I can't help myself. For my next pile of books, I went on Instagram earlier this week and I asked for people to vote on which one of these books I should read first. These are all off of my TBR 24 and 24 pile, and I am hoping to get to at least 2 of them this month, if not all 4 of them. I have 4 in this stack. And I put the first lines in my Instagram post and I asked people to vote on them. And the book that received the most votes was Hilltop Farm by Susan Wittig Albert. And this is the first in the Beatrix Potter tales. I think they're kind of like mysteries. I'm going to read you the first line because it's really fantastic and I'm not at all surprised this is the one people picked. It was a splendid morning in October when Miss Abigail Tolliver departed this world, one of those brilliant, breezy days that set the heart singing and stirs the blue English lakes and the blue English sky into a grand and glorious celebration of clouds and color. Even though it starts in October, I mean, I feel like Beatrix Potter just evokes springtime with all of her animals that she drew and her stories of Peter Rabbit, and that all just screams spring to me. So I am definitely excited to get to this one in April. And then the book that actually came in second when I did the voting on Instagram was this Barbara Pym, A Few Green Leaves, and it is really appropriate for April. Let me read you its first line. On the Sunday after Easter, Low Sunday, Emma believed it was called, the villagers were permitted to walk in the park and woods surrounding the manor. I mean, it starts on the Sunday after Easter, and this seems like the perfect time of year to read this. I am really going to prioritize this one. This is going in the high priority list. So I am going to do my best to read first this one and then this one this month. And then if I have time, I will try to get to 1 or 2 of the other books that I picked off my TBR 24 and 24, one of which is The Queen and I by Sue Townsend. Quickly, the first line from this is, the Queen was in bed watching television with Harris. The Queen's in bed with Harris. I actually find that really intriguing, and I love Sue Townsend. She's so funny, and this might be just something light and bright to read this month. And then last off of my TBR 24 and 24 is The Man in the Queue by Josephine Tey. I haven't read that much Josephine Tey, and I really would like to. And the first line from this is, if I can find it, it was between 7 and 8 o'clock on a March evening, and all over London, the bars were being drawn back from pit and gallery doors. If I'm in the mood for another mystery, then I might get to this one as well. My next stack are books that I am definitely going to read this month, but let's read those first lines and see how drawn in I am to them. First up is the next book I need to read in the Lord Peter Wimsey series, and that is The Unpleasantness at the Balona Club. This is the fourth book in the series, and the first line says, "What in the world, Wimsey, are you doing in this morgue?" demanded Captain Fentiman, flinging aside the evening banner with the air of a man released from an irksome duty. Well, I like that a lot. All right, I'm excited to read this one. The next book off of the stack of definitely going to read in April is Pirouette by Susan Scarlett. This is for my Cozy Reader book club. And if you don't know, Susan Scarlett is one of the pseudonyms that Noel Streatfeild used to write her adult novels. And let's find out what the first line is. The heavy velvet curtain swung up for the 8th time. Okay. I mean, clearly, I know this is going to be about dance. Pirouette, dancer on the cover. I'm already sold. That's really all I needed to know. I didn't even need to read the first line to be drawn into this one. I am really, really looking forward to this. Next up is my selection for Read Christie 2024 for this month. In April, we are supposed to read a book written in the 1930s. I actually have a book from the 1930s of Agatha Christie's that I have not read yet, and that is Murder is Easy. Oh, I'm going to read the first couple of lines because the first line is just, England. England after many years. How was he going to like it? I don't know. How was he going to like it? Let's find out. Always love an Agatha Christie. And then I just recently heard that some booktubers are doing Alcott in April. And I mentioned in one of my other videos when I talked about visiting Orchid House, which is Louisa May Alcott's home in Concord, Massachusetts, that I have a book from there that I've never read, and I visited there over 20 years ago, and that is Fairy Tales and Fantasy Stories by Louisa May Alcott. And I was thinking maybe I might dip in and out of this a little bit. The first story is very, very short. That's the whole thing right there. Well, I could definitely read that one. Let's read the first line. It's called Flower Fables. The summer moon shone brightly down upon the sleeping earth, while far away from mortal eyes danced the fairy folk. I think it might be fun to kind of dip in and out of this as well. I might just put this on my bedside table and, read a few stories from it throughout the month. That might be kind of fun. My last two books are actually two books that I just saw at the library the other day and grabbed them because they looked kind of intriguing. I have no idea whether I will actually get to either of them this month. Let's do the first line test with these two. The first book that I picked up was The Pole by J.M. Coetzee. And let's read the first line. The woman is the first to give him trouble, followed soon afterwards by the man. Okay, interesting. Let me just show you one of the pages. So all the paragraphs are numbered. I'm not sure. I know it has to do with music, with piano, clearly. So maybe it has to do with stanzas of music or bars of music or something. I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued by this. It's very short. I'm going to put this in the high priority pile because I'm really intrigued by that one. And then the last one that I found, I don't know anything about this, but I read my first P.G. Wodehouse last year, and we're going to read another P.G. Wodehouse in May for the Cozy Reader Book Club. And I saw this at my library, and I just had to bring it home. This is Jeeves and the Wedding Bells, which is an homage to P.G. Wodehouse by Sebastian Fox, which Sebastian Fox wrote Birdsong, which I read so many years ago and just loved. I can't remember now if it's World War I or World War II novel, but it's beautifully written. And this just looks kind of fun. And I know nothing about it. Let's read the first line. I was woken in the middle of the night by what sounded like a dozen metal dustbins being chucked down a flight of stone steps. Well, I'm in. This is so intriguing. If I don't get to this in April, I'm going to check this back out again in either May or June, because I mean, June might be a good time to read Jeeves and the Wedding Bells, right? June is always the month of weddings, isn't it? That might be kind of fun then. Sorry for the glare on this. Oh, it's so shiny, this like metallic-y letters on this cover. But yeah, that sounds really fun. Okay, high priority pile for that too. Okay, let's just check out what we've got now on the high priority pile. Oh my goodness, this is wow. I don't know that I did much to like make this smaller than when we started. Plus I have all of these. Well, I guess, let's see. Let's take those two off. Those aren't for sure. These are all mine. The rest. Well, clearly I have a lot of reading to do in April. I will definitely not get to all of these. I know that, but it is fun to have a pile of high priority possibilities that I'm excited to read, that I have read the first line and it has drawn me in, and hopefully I can get to at least a good chunk of those books. I would love to know from you, which first lines drew you in? Is there a book that I mentioned that you think I should prioritize, especially the books that were in my first stack of, you know, books that are not ones I am for sure going to read? So is there anything in that pile that you think I should prioritize or that sounded especially good to you in particular? I would love to know that down in the comments, or anything else you'd like to talk about down there. I love chatting books with all of you. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if you could hit that like button and then subscribe if you aren't already subscribed and would like to see more bookish content from me. I will be back very soon with another video. Thank you so much for all of your support with my channel. I appreciate it more than I can ever say. I really have loved becoming a part of the BookTube community over the past couple of months. So thank you so much for that, and I'll see you soon. Bye.